Good morning, good day, and good evening. I am, as always, your host, Brody Robertson, and today we are back for a solo episode. I might be doing a couple of more going forward, just because through the Christmas and holiday period, it's kind of a pain to get people on an episode. People have Christmas stuff, they're going on holidays, they're doing work to get ready for Christmas, and they're busy doing that. I'm sure I can find people, and if I actually put effort into it, I almost certainly would be able to. But I haven't done that many solo episodes as of this year anyway. It's been mainly the guest episodes. There was that period where I was doing a lot of the game developer episodes, but besides that, there's been a lot of just general Linux-focused episodes, so I kind of want to do more of the solo stuff anyway. It reminds me of the way things, were back in the start of the podcast, where I just randomly had friends on. It wasn't really anything where I was, trying to do these big, interesting discussions. It was actually just shit-talking, pretty much. Just not doing anything productive, just talking. And I guess people liked it, and there's some people who want solo episodes, so, I'm more than happy to do them. It does mean I have to talk for 2 hours, which means I actually have to talk, which is, something different when I have the guests on, when, depending on who it is, they will talk for me for the entire episode, and I will say, 5 words the entire time. There are certainly some people like that who are very, very talkative. But I guess, you know what? Let's start off with the greatest PR that ever came to my attention. So I think this was sent to me on my Discord. It's not a new pull request, but regardless, I have to mention it because it's so good. Now that it's been shared by a few people, it has gotten a few comments on it, but we'll get to those in just a moment. Add support for external Bluetooth devices. This is on a project called Panda 3DS. This is a 3DS emulator. I believe it's one of the more popular options. 3DS emulation, I'm pretty sure is in a relatively good state. If somebody wants to correct me on that, please let me know, but I know people definitely do talk about this one when they talk about 3DS emulation. So, this is by Sylvie IoT, and of course, as you can tell, because it's always the case, they're from fucking Australia. Why is it always the Australians, no matter where we go? Every single fucking time. Every fucking time it's the Australians. Add support for external haptic Bluetooth devices, in this case, butt plugs. This works for all sorts of Bluetooth butt plugs that use the common Bluetooth protocol for BPs, the acronym for butt plugs, and is also hooked into the Lua API so that you can make per-game scripts to activate and control your device. This is early progress code. I need some more time to work on it and help if possible. Now, I was very curious about how this was functioning because I am aware of some things that exist, and I just had to be certain. So, if you have a look in here, you'll notice there is a couple of files called buttplugcpp.cpp and buttplugclient.cpp. So, I was curious what this specific file is related to. So I went and did a search. And if you look for buttplug C++, if I can spell, of course it's not going to show up with that. Here we go. If you search for it, you will find a library called buttplugcpp. So, is this the one, or is this another project with the same name? Wait, this actually might be another project with the same name. Wait, is it? Hold up. Oh, no, I'm reading the wrong part. No, right here. Right here. I just going right past it. C++ API for buttplug IO. So, okay, I'm gonna have to like educate some people here. So, I don't know if I can show. You know, I'll show you. I'll show this part of the website. Oh, wait, if I zoom in, I don't know what of this website I'm allowed to show and what's going to be a problem. So, this is an open source standard and software project for controlling intimate hardware, including sex toys, fucking machines, and more. I'm just going to scroll past the pictures of the sex toys, because I'm honestly not sure how YouTube handles that. If someone knows, let me know. It is implemented in Rust with bindings for C#, JS, and other languages. Is the C++... Yeah, the C++ one is listed directly in here as well. Support for popular hardware brands that you will know if you are a degenerate. Plugins for game engines like Unreal, Unity, Godot, Twine, and more. Yes, that is a thing as well. So okay. Oh yeah, there's also Flipper Zero. There's also Flipper Zero stuff as well. There's a list of video games in here. Here we go. So there are game mods as well. Now some of them are obviously sex games. Others are Buttplug Valley for Stardew Valley, a mod for Ultra Kill, a mod for Skyrim, a mod for Duck Game. Now, obviously, a lot of these are just like, haha, funny meme. Why do it? Oh yeah, Beat Saber as well, called Butt Saber. So there are people who like to have some fun with this and do some stupid stuff. Now, back to Panda 3DS. So this is someone trying to add support for Buttplug IO into Panda 3DS, the 3DS emulator. Now, I am not certain if this is a troll, because this is someone who has actually put work into making this happen. However, if you read some of the replies that we see, I'm honestly not certain. So... Here is someone saying, please merge this as soon as possible. This is a existing collaborator on the project, and they decided to review the code. You added this as a submodule, but not open BPCPP. We prefer to store stuff as submodule here so that when GitHub can go private, we don't suffer any damages. Actually, wait. That would have opposite effect. What was I saying? Oh, please add open BPCPP as a submodule instead. Open BPCPP is heavily modified as I made it good while it was horrible before. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go through 20,000 lines of code to make sure you didn't add a backdoor. Get it. Somewhere in the program. I done get it. I done get it. We shouldn't hard code the address / port like that. More so, what if I want to receive haptic inputs from people all around the globe? Do I have to modify the code myself to change the IP address from my HAP device it is coded on? So, this is currently looking for the client at the local host. So this person is suggesting, well, what if I don't want it to be local host? What if I want it to be, I don't know, what if I want to have eSex with, through the 3DS? This adds butt plug support, not eSex, bro. I don't know what that B word is or what eSex is. Please address the review comment. Okay, that didn't have a reply. This would probably trigger a signed, unsigned comparison warning. Don't care, what the fuck? This library doesn't feel as, this library doesn't really feel as a core component of Alba to justify being linked to the core library. Don't care. Meaningless comment. Don't don't care. I think you care. I think people are I am unsure. I don't know if anyone is sure whether this person is trolling or not. Don't care. Because, like, they went out of their way to write this pull request, right? And, like, some of the comments have actual legitimate replies to them. So I'm so confused what's happening here. Like, if this was just a shit post, you know, like the, on KDE, when people discovered that on Windows there is a hotkey for, I think it's Control-Shift-Alt Windows. Yeah, Control-Shift-Alt Windows and then a letter. So I think L opened LinkedIn. That's because on modern Windows devices there is like a special magic Windows key. I think it's on like the Surface devices. It's like a Surface key or something where it specifically is mapped to that binding. So people made like joke pull requests in KDE and things like that, adding that functionality. But that was obviously a joke. I don't know if this is a joke. Magic number. Sir, this is how Lua thunks work. You return the number of return values. Another magic number. I don't know Lua. I don't know if this is actually a legitimate comment or if they're just trolling again. Lines of code equals performance. True. Bzz, 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 bzz. This is the peak chess strat. Why is this PR? Why indeed? I didn't understand what the question was asking, which means I am a bumbling idiot. True. Finally, oh, this is after I posted it. So this... Yeah, this was after I posted it. So this is when my people started discovering this. And also, the developer of buttplug.io also shared my sharing of the comment. So I'm sure there's people from that audience as well. Ultrafan Kills are having a field day right now, modding in plug support into everything. Pluggy Wuggy. The weirdest spin I've ever seen also merge this. Honestly, if this is actually true, merge this. It is obvious that so many people want this merged. Why isn't it merged? It's 3 a.m. and I keep getting emails about people wanting this merged. I do not apologize at all for bringing attention to this. I do not apologize even remotely. Now, if you would like to talk and explain to me if this is or is not a shitpost, I would love to know. I would love to speak to you. Sylvie, if you see this, or if anybody that knows Sylvie sees this and can put them in contact, please go and do so. I would definitely love to chat. Now, at this stage, the developers have not yet responded again, probably because this is probably a shitpost and it's actually fucking stupid. But until then, I guess we'll have to wait and see if the developers have the balls to merge this. I've seen some people say, "Oh, well, this is not suitable for a 3DS emulator. This shouldn't be in a 3DS emulator." I don't care. Look, I do not care at all. If they want to put it behind like a build option or a config option so it's not exposed in the settings by default, sure, whatever. But, look, assuming this isn't injecting a backdoor into the code, I fully support this being done. I want it to happen. Make it happen. I'm probably going to do a video about this on the main channel, which is going to bring even more attention to it. Please don't go and leave stupid comments on the repo. However, however, I do want this to happen. Oh, God. I love the internet. Like, I really do. like, there's so many people that take shit seriously. Like, they'll see just some dumb discussion and be like, oh, why are you saying? No, don't care. Not serious. Nothing serious. We're talking about fucking adding butt plug APIs into a 3DS emulator. Nothing that is being said is serious right now. Just don't worry about anything. That's the real strat, right? Just stop being concerned with everything, and your life will be considerably smoother, nicer, considerably more chill, we'll say. Yeah, I think that works. Now, speaking of being chill, Discord and Wayland has been problematic for a while. So if you ran Discord in your web browser, because the browser supports like the portal stuff, that all works just fine. Like, you can do screen capture, not an issue. You can do audio capture, not an issue, works fine. The problem is in the Discord desktop client, they use a custom WebRTP. I believe it's custom. I've heard it's custom. Yeah, I believe they use like a custom WebRTP. I can't find a source on it. Anyway, regardless of the reason, it's not worked. So if you tried to capture your screen on Wayland, it would just like loop. It would just keep looping, trying over and over again to reconnect, and just did not work. Now on X11 it worked fine. That's because on X11, like, it has a capture API. You could just capture things on X11 with, like, no concern whatsoever. Wayland, you have to go through the desktop portals. There are other solutions to it as well that exist on things like WLRoots, but the generic solution that every desktop is going to do is through the portals. Turns out, somebody has been working on it over at Discord. I noticed that somebody started working on it where it was kind of like half working, right? So there was a point where it just did nothing. Then it opened the portal prompt and then just kept reopening it every time. So someone had like pushed some code into production, but it wasn't yet done. Recently, somebody noticed this. Click the Make Selection button, then choose a window, application, or screen to go live using your system menu. And this shows up now under Wayland. And it's only on the Canary branch right now, so it's probably going to take, I don't know how long stuff stays in the Canary branch for, but I'm going to assume like a couple of weeks. And then eventually, Wayland, Discord works fine. I wish Zoom worked fine as well. Now, Zoom does work under Wayland, but the way they've set it up is insane. So it works completely fine, just not how it's configured out of the box, because out of the box, firstly, Wayland capture is just set to disabled for some reason. I don't know why. They've had support for Wayland capture, I think for, I want to say like 2 or 3 years at this point. Like, it's not a new feature that needs to be behind a config option. But even then, if you enable it, it still doesn't work. Because then what you need to do, I think it works under GNOME, because I think they've like hard-coded GNOME into the way they detect if you're on Wayland. But if you go into the capture settings, there is an option for, I think it's called like video source or desktop capture method or something along those lines. If you go and click that option, it's set to auto by default. If you set it down to Pipewire, then it'll go and do the Pipewire portal capture. And if you're on like if you're on KDE, if you're on Cosmic, if you're on WRoots, it'll go and open the portal relevant to that environment. If you don't do that, you can capture your desktop, but you can only capture your desktop. You can't capture individual monitors or individual windows. On WRoots, I don't think you can do individual windows anyway because of limitations with WRoots. But that's specifically WL Roots. On KDE and I believe Cosmic as well, it works now. So it's really nice to see that these long-running video capture issues are actually being addressed on Wayland, because there are still people, like every so often I go to the fucking the Wayland Breaks Everything post, and you'll still see comments on there like, oh, you can't capture your screen. Wayland Breaks, think twice, Wayland Breaks Everything. That is the post. Like, Wayland breaks screen recording applications, which is not even true at all. Like, it still mentions Discord on here, which, firstly, has been resolved years ago. Like, this problem is fixed. Like, this is no longer an issue. I think it was fixed before this issue was made. Like, that's how long ago the problem's been dealt with. As for these other ones here, I don't know if these other ones have added Portal support yet. I think this one I don't think is going to. Okay, this one has been... This was archived years ago, so that's never gonna do it. Oh yeah, this was the one that was using like weird internal GNOME APIs that they shouldn't have been dealing with. And GNOME like changed how they were handling private APIs, and then it broke that application. And this one, I think, this one has been abandoned as well. But like OBS supports Wayland. Like, I'm literally using it right now. And there are a bunch of other video capture tools that support Wayland. But the issue we have, like, in this discussion is the developer just doesn't like dbus, doesn't like portals, doesn't like Red Hat. Anything that involves any of those as a solution is inherently just bad. So even if the solution exists, it's just not good enough as a solution, because it needs to work the same way it worked in X11. Otherwise, it's not working at all, which is just never going to happen. So, good luck with that one, I guess. But on the bright side, at least Discord Wayland works now. So I don't have to be the one in the group chat who, when we're like playing buckshot roulette or something, somebody else has to go and share the screen because I can't share the screen myself. Or I can share the screen, but there's just no audio there, which is fine for buckshot, but there are other things where maybe it's going to make sense to want the audio shared as well. There were ways you can do it, like you can route. Again, this is where you get to start getting into like weird, like janky methods where you can take the audio from the game and then route it into your microphone input, which hopefully doesn't create weird issues, but also the way Discord handles screen sharing audio and microphone audio is different. Like, they're treated as two separate audio channels, so it probably would do weird things. It would mess with the interface anyway. You couldn't like change the volume level on the actual screen recording. Also, I believe the screen recordings would be exempt from Discord's built-in noise cancelling, which would make sense, because if you're capturing like a video game or a movie, you wouldn't want the noise cancelling of the microphones, because that would break pretty much most game audio. Like, most games have random quiet sounds that you want to be able to hear, but you wouldn't want to have picked up in a microphone. Like right now, I don't know if you can hear it, there's a fucking lawnmower going on just outside. It's my neighbors, I think. Yeah, it's my neighbors. Lucky's not right, it's on my fucking window. My housemate's not home right now, so yeah, definitely couldn't be outside my window unless someone broke in who wanted to just mow my lawn. Which, look, I wouldn't have put it past some of the weird YouTubers out there, but, you know, I don't live in the US, so probably not going to get as many weird of them. Speaking of weird things, though, we're just going to be, like, doing this jumping between topics thing until there might come a point where I'm like, I'm just going to talk about one thing for, like, 20 or 30 minutes. Otherwise, I've got a bunch of things in here that I am going to talk about, and we're probably going to talk about each for, like, 10 or 15 minutes. So, you know, every time I come back to do these solo episodes, I always kind of forget how to do them. It always just ends up being, like, a different thing. Sometimes it's just talking about anime for 2 hours. Other times, I'm like, ooh, cool news story I want to talk about. Ooh, cool news story I want to talk about. But, for now, anyway. So, recently, the Steam Deck became available in Australia. November 19th, we started seeing the sale of the Steam Deck. I have mine back here. I did not get this during the sale. I've had this one for quite a while now. This was sent to me directly from Valve. Still very much appreciate that, Valve. Thank you for that. I should use it more than I do. But alongside that announcement happening, alongside that being available, actually, what game do they have here? What are they showing? This is, what is this game? I don't know. That's Dave the Diver, isn't it? That is the popular fighting game, and there's Armored Core. Was that like the first boss? I think it might have been. There is also the white Steam Deck. Now, the white Steam Deck does look really, really cool. Why am I not in focus? Focus me! Focus me! You can see my hair getting thinner. There's gonna come a point where I'm bold. Why is my camera not focusing? Look at my top of my head. Oi. Focus? There we go. Anyway. My hair, I used to have really thick hair. Eventually it's going to become thinner. When I noticeably start becoming bald, then we are not going to go Vegeta. When this hairline starts going back, it's all going. Anyway, Anyway, Steam Deck. So there is a white Steam Deck. I like white controllers. I have my, I have one, oh, right. I forgot that you could scroll on the trackpad here. I have the white PS5 controller. I have another one in here as well. And I also have a Xbox One Series controller because it's nicer than the old Xbox One not Series controller. It's got some slight modifications to it, different grip, all that sort of stuff. But I am a fan of white controllers. The issue with white controllers is they are white controllers, and if you have sweaty gamer hands, which I do, and even if you don't, it's going to become a problem eventually. You are going to get your gamer grime onto the device. Usually what happens is anytime there is like connections in the shell, so any like bits like that your hand rubs on, usually the face buttons are mostly fine because as you're using you tend to like rub the grime off anyway. With the L1, R2, or L1, L2, R1, R2, shoulder and bumper buttons, whatever you want to say, typically in like the grooves, I'll go here, so it'll be easier. Typically in like the grooves along the buttons, and also with the trackpad, like along here as well, and then especially like, on the back where your hands sit, because like the bits we're actually holding are fine, but it starts like pushing stuff down towards the middle. That all starts to get fairly like gross fairly quickly, and I don't think Valve has done anything magical to make sure that's not going to happen on the white Steam Deck. So I just caution anyone who would consider buying one. if you want to make sure it looks nice, make sure you are cleaning it. You can get away with not cleaning a black controller and it will look fine. You cannot do so with a white controller. It's gonna depend on the plastic and all that stuff, but there's no magic solution that I'm aware of besides just trying to keep it clean. But if you want to buy it, that's cool. Honestly, I would prefer... Honestly, I remember the last limited edition they did. Steam Deck limited edition. Not the white one. This one. What's a good picture of it? Limited edition OLED? Is that what it was? Yeah. This one. This one, I think, looked really, really nice. Honestly, they should have gone even harder with the orange. Like, they've got orange accents here. What they should have done is just gone full We Love Orange. Like, orange trackpad, orange sticks. Just fucking ball out with it. Just go hard with it. I do hope they do something fun like that in the future. You know, like you would see with old video game controllers where you'd have, like, translucent green or translucent purple or, like, gold and other things like that. There's something fun about just throwing caution to the wind and just making it look ridiculous, knowing that people are gonna be a bit... you know, a bit wary on it. Like, some people are going to think it looks bad. Other people, they are going to like it. But the people who really, really like that style are going to absolutely adopt it. Also, just notice he looks like an egg. And his name is Humphrey. Beautiful. Beautiful. While we're on the topic of Steam, though, and Steam-related devices and controllers, there has been a lot of rumors about a Steam Controller 2. Steam Control... I wonder if we'll be able to find the old rumors. Yeah, here's the prior rumor. So this is a picture of the original Steam Controller. Leak, Valve is making a Steam Controller 2 and a ROI for its deck card. This was originally leaked by Brad Lynch, who is... someone who very much likes to explore what is going on behind the scenes in, like, Valve's APIs and digging shit up. And usually this is a fairly good source for leaks. Obviously, going based on what you can see in the public API, things can obviously be bait. Things can be, like, tested internally and put into the API, but not actually going to be a real product. But there is a bit more than just a name. Code name for Steam Controller 2 is Ibex. Separate product for Deckard's ROI controllers. Separate product from Deckard's ROI controllers. Both are being tooled for mass production in their factories right now. That's why I know they're in later stages of productization. But we didn't have any idea what the controller could maybe possibly look like. Now, we're still not 100% certain because obviously we're not sure if this is actually going to be the 3D model of it, but the same person did also discover a 3D model. So let's bring up a bigger picture of that there. So this is a model of the controller that was found within Valve's information, Valve's stuff. Keep in mind, possible work in progress. You don't actually know what it's going to look like until it exists, or if it is going to exist, you know, until it exists. But let's just assume that this is the design it is going with. And I think it's fair to assume, because this is a pretty standard size, it's going to be around the size of a PS5 controller or an Xbox controller. I think the Xbox controller is... it is a tad less wide. Yeah, it is a... just maybe... what, like... a centimeter, maybe 2 centimeters less wide. So with that in mind, okay, for anyone just listening, it is a very weird design. So you have the PlayStation D-pad and face button placement, so they're at the top. Now, it does also have trackpads. Those are, I wouldn't say in the place of the thumbsticks, because if you notice here, if you're listening, so if you have like a PS5 controller, if you're a PS2 controller, imagine where the sticks are came down, I don't know, another 2 centimeters. So it extends the plastic down, and that's where the trackpads are. And the sticks are in the same location they are in right now. So below and to the right of the D-pad, and below and to the left of the face buttons. So I'm really curious about how it feels to hold this thing, because at least judging by what we see here, there's a lot less like side grip. And obviously we can't tell what it looks like from the back of it, so it might extend inwards like we see with the PS5 controller. Let's actually compare this with the Steam Deck, actually. So I think what's very likely here is on the back of the Steam Deck, even though it doesn't have that that upwards concave, the inwards bend that you see on something like a PS5 controller or Xbox controller, any controller out there, it does have these handles. So I'm imagining that back here we also have handles as well. So this, like around here, there's probably rounded outwards. Around here is probably rounded outwards as well. Otherwise, I don't see how this thing could be held. That's the only the only logical approach I can think of. And I'm guessing it's gonna have the same feel to it that the trackpads on the on the Steam Deck have. It looks like it's around about the same placement. Obviously, it's kind of hard to tell with the scale here, because we don't have another object for reference to it. But they kind of have done a relatively good job with the sizing of the Steam Deck. So I'm imagining they're going to try something like that. Maybe making the sticks bigger. I do kind of hope that. I really don't hope they repurpose the Steam Deck sticks. Not to say the Steam Deck sticks are bad. I think they are fine for a handheld, but of the current generation, I do think the Steam Deck has the least comfortable sticks. They are the smallest. They have sharp edges on them. My fingers tend to slide off of them. I do think that they need to make the top of the sticks wider. Maybe like another half a centimeter. Maybe like another half a centimeter, because, or is it, are they around the same? Yeah, I think they're a little bit smaller than the PS5 controller sticks. Also, the PS5 controller sticks don't have the hard edge. They have like a rounded rubber, like a rounded rubbery surface, which I find a lot easier to keep my fingers on. So I'm assuming that this is heavily inspired by the Steam Deck. That just logically makes sense. Like, they use the Steam Deck as their early product, and they A/B test it from that. Now, someone actually posted okay, they also posted this one. The Steam Deck, the Steam controller with the blushing trackpads. Where is the picture? Here. So, for a while now, people have made these renders of the Steam Deck if it didn't have a screen. Now, obviously, this is functional, but it's clearly not like a great design. However, it is very clearly the same concept as what we see over here. It just, rather than having the trackpads be flat on, which doesn't really make sense in such a cramped, like, area. Like, usually you're used to having your hands angled out rather than, like, dead straight. I think angling them out like they are here makes more sense. Also, not having the duplicated buttons, not having the speakers as well, I think makes a lot of sense. So I'm almost certainly gonna get one of these, because it's gonna have, like, great support under Linux and all that. I never got an original Steam controller, but I know there's a lot of people that really, really like them, that really like the idea of using trackpads like this for gaming. So I want to know what it's like. I think honestly the only issues I have with the Steam controller layout is I think it is just the sticks. I actually do think it is just the sticks. The trackpads are fine. I think I do think the shoulder and trigger buttons are not as satisfying as they could be, right? Like, I like the heavier feel of the PS5 controller. Also, having the springs in the PS5 controller, even though they do tend to break, do give you a really nice feel, as opposed to what you have with the Steam Deck, where you have this fairly light push, but they also have, like, vibration as well. And the vibration, it's fine. It's just not great. But a lot of the stuff we have with the Steam Deck is because it is a handheld. Like, you need to cram, a CPU, you need to cram your RAM, storage, all into this device. So you have to make some design constraints with the controller. But being purely a controller, there is a lot more space to work with. So I really do hope they address the tactile feel of the controller. If they do that, will it be my favorite controller? It's really, really hard to dethrone the PS5 controller. I think this is actually one of the best controllers ever made. I've not tried a lot of third-party controllers. I know there's a lot of people that swear by 8-Bit Do. I know there's a lot of people that swear by a couple of other companies as well, but of the first-party controllers, I do genuinely think Sony absolutely cooked with the PS5 controller, because I was not a big fan of the PS4 controller. It was okay, but I think what they've done with the PS5 controller is they took the classic DualShock design, moving into DualSense, and just made it a little bit bigger. The DualShock was fine as a child, but as an adult, like, I do agree that, yeah, it's gotten a little less comfortable to hold. Also, having the indented sticks, having the grip on the back, all of that stuff is nice as well. I never have any complaints about the Sony D-pad. It's pretty much always been great. The face buttons, never a complaint as well. Honestly, the only problem I have is when using the PS5 controller on PC, the trackpad acts like a mouse, which is obviously what it's supposed to do. It's a trackpad, but it also means that it does mouse things, which means if a game binds something to the trackpad, sometimes it thinks you're using a mouse, and then it will change the controller layout. And it's like, it's showing you the PC controls now. And that's honestly the only actual issue I have with it. Actually, while we're talking about Sony as well, I guess, you know what? We're doing, like, reasonable segues today. So I'm sure you guys have heard about Sony potentially buying Kadokawa. By buying at Kadokawa, you've probably heard it as Sony might buy From Software, because apparently that is the only thing that Kadokawa is known for. So Kadokawa is obviously, yes, From Software is big, Elden Ring is big. Like, that's the thing that a lot of the gaming people are caring about. But Kadokawa is a It is a media giant. FromSoft is just one of the things that it owns. So, under publication, it owns Bookwalker. It owns Kadokawa Publishing. It owns ASCII MediaWorks. It owns the ATX channel in Japan. It owns Spike Chunsoft from Software. What does Acquire? What have they done? They seem to work a lot alongside other studios. Also, they do ports of things. Okay, they are not as important. Okay, outside of Japan, they own J Novel Club. They own Anime News Network. They own Yen Press. They 51% own Yen Press. They own Dogakobo, the animation studio. They own Kinema Citrus. They've owned a lot of other stuff in the past. Like, they used to own Magus, the who worked on Steins Gate, the visual novel. There's a bunch of other just random things. Kadokawa. Oh, they own Nico Nico as well. Kadokawa is a giant company. And Sony wants to own everything. Sony already owns a lot of the anime industry. And we are actually getting to a point where Sony is becoming like an anime monopoly. Right now it hasn't really affected the quality of the content we're getting, which is fine. I just don't know how long that is going to last, because I don't trust... Whilst I do trust the engineers at Sony to make really, really nice controllers, I don't trust the corporate leadership to do healthy things with any industry they own a lot of, whether it be manga publishing, light novel publishing, anime, video games, anything like that. But maybe we'll get Bloodborne on PC. Look, on the bright side, maybe that'll happen. Or maybe we'll get a Bloodborne re-release on PS5. I doubt it. It's probably not going to happen. I am convinced at this point that From Software legitimately does not have the source code to Bloodborne anymore. Or there is some crazy licensing deal that's stopping it being released on anything else. Because I don't understand any other reason why Bloodborne has not had a re-release, with people asking for a re-release for so long. Like, you've had re-releases of so many other games. Sony is like really big on doing re-releases right now and remasters and all that stuff. But Bloodborne, which is a cult classic game, never had anything. But that's a side tangent. I'm worried. I am worried about how this is going to happen, because I know people like to think of another giant company, right? Another big company that likes to buy up a lot of other companies is Tencent. Now, Tencent, with the Tencent, like, I guess, more marketed games, yes, they are fairly problematic. Unless you're a big fan of microtransactions. So Tencent also owns quite a bit, or they own like 7% of Kadokawa. They own 10% of Ubisoft, 16% of FromSoft. They own 35% of Epic Games. Like, this is what I mean, right? They own 35% of Shift Up. So how much of... Oh, they own the majority of Miniclip. So Tencent is a company that, if you're making money, it seems like they are a lot more hands-off. Like, they own Key, the visual novel company in Japan. They own the entirety of Riot and the entirety of Grinding Gear Games, the developers of Path of Exile. I will talk about Path of Exile 2 in a bit. But I actually trust Tencent a lot more than I trust Sony at this point, because they have let Grinding Gear Games do whatever they want. Like, people will talk about, oh, Riot, microtransactions, or, like, Ubisoft being shit, or Epic Games, and all of this stuff, but, like, the fact that Grinding Gear Games is allowed to exist in the way that it is, like, I get, like, that just that by itself gives me hope. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, so if we go to the Path of Exile website, so Path of Exile is known to have quite a lot of microtransactions, like a lot of microtransactions, like crazy microtransactions. If we go to the microtransaction store, let's go to new. Like, you have all of this stuff. This is just on the new page. Actually, let's go to a page that's not new. Let's go to the armor page and just scroll. And just scroll. And just keep scrolling. Okay, I guess that's the end. The difference, though, is every single microtransaction in Path of Exile, with the exception of the stash tabs, is a cosmetic. So these character ones we see here, this is just like, you want to have different colored utility flasks, or different colored nexus, or you want to go to footprints, you want to have different footprints, or you want to be fucking horrible and get some annoying pet like the Goblin Troop, which I think is in one of the bundles actually, and just have it go doo-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba every time you go into town and just annoy everyone. Everything in here is cosmetic. Now, normally I would say cosmetics are the end game, and in a lot of games they are. Actually, okay, to be fair, this is probably one of the only other few things that is possibly, you could argue pay to win. You can buy extra character slots, but most people don't play that many characters anyway, and your characters don't matter outside the current league. So unless you're playing like standard, or you really care about keeping your old characters that have been moved from a league back to standard, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. In Path of Exile, there is no... So you can't use your regular armor as part of like a transmog system, as like a glamour system. So no matter what gear you're wearing at the end of the game, it's going to look bad. The only way to look good in Path of Exile is buying the cosmetics. And considering you're normally this big on the screen, like you're a couple of pixels high, like you're never gonna... There's never going to be a situation where you really, really desperately care about looking good. Now, the stash tabs are the only thing in this game that actually, not even arguably, legitimately is pay to win. Because whilst you can trade, if you don't buy a stash tab, you are not able to sell things on the market board. So pretty much if you buy this. So this is the upgrade to premium stash tab. This is 15 of their tokens. I'm never a fan of tokens, but that is like $1 or something. You can't buy perfectly sized packs. Yes, that is probably one of the things I do think about PoE is kind of dumb. I do have extra tokens right now because I'll explain that in a moment. But yeah, upgrading that to a premium tab, or buying a premium quad tab, which is like a 4x size tab, basically a requirement if you want to trade. If you want your life to be not insane, you would want to buy stash tabs for all of the different item types as well. So gems, flasks, currency, div cards, blight, maps, essence, fragments, ultimatum, delve, uniques you can get away with not having, and then delirium as well. But because the game is free, that works out to be like 60, I think it's like 50, 40 US dollars, something in that range. Which I think if you're paying that for a game that you're going to play like a couple thousand hours of, even if you play like 50 hours of Path of Exile and you're like, I'm done with this, paying like $40, $50 for that, I think is reasonable. Like, this is the only purchase in the game that is required. Now, the reason why I have these extra tokens that I don't have, if you buy a pack, so you want to buy like the Lord of Ogham supporter pack, which I did buy because I wanted a key to the early access, and I also wanted the Kiwi pet. I also like the armor. When you buy a $60 pack, you also get $60 worth of points. So you're not just buying the gear, right? So basically, if you are gonna buy $60 worth of points, you might as well also buy this as well. Like this, I think this is the most fair microtransaction system I've ever seen. There is not a game that I can think of that has a more fair system, because there is no progression. There is no like items that actually have value. Like in Warframe, for example, you can buy your way to a new Warframe or a new weapon, and that speeds up the process. In Path of Exile, there is none of that. The only stuff you can buy is purely cosmetic, and also the stash tabs, which are a one-time purchase. And also transfer from PoE 1 over to PoE 2 as well. So there's also that as well. So if you bought if you want to get a free key to the early access, if you spend $480 US, which is also the price of the top tier pack, if you want this ridiculous looking gear, which I am not a fan of, that'll get you a key as well. But also you could just buy the $30 pack or any of the other packs and you'll get a key. Why did they get into this topic? Oh, right. Tencent owning grinding gear games. Like, yes, there are games that are like super microtransaction-y heavy under the Tencent banner, but the fact that there are games like Path of Exile where there is zero progression tied to actually spending money in the game, you can be a completely free player and be happy minus market board trading. That's why I trust Tencent light years more than I trust anything Sony does. Sony is Sony. That's how I feel. Sony is Sony. I don't have any reason whatsoever to trust anything that happens with that company. Yeah. I spoke about that for a while, didn't I? Like, quite a bit. So, I am really excited for Path of Exile 2. While we're here, I'm really excited for Path of Exile 2. I've seen the endgame mechanics trailer, and it looks like they're reworking a lot of the game. So for anyone who hasn't played Path of Exile 2, I'll briefly explain like how the system works. So every league, which is every 3-ish months, depending on if they forget the league is supposed to end, like Settlers of Kalgur, which I don't know when is going to end. I guess it's going to end at some point, but they've been busy working on PoE 2, so, like, nobody knows anything about the next league. It's kind of just, been forgotten about. 3-ish months. So, what was it going? Right. Every league, you start a new character, you go through the campaign, which, if you're a good player, 5 to 10 hours. PoE 1 campaign completion time. I'm not a good player. I usually get sidetracked doing other things. Campaign. About. Yeah, you can do about 5 to 8 hours if you know what you're doing. if you don't know what you're doing, it'll probably be closer to like 15 or so. And then from there, you go into the end game, and this is the actual start of the game. This is where you start a system called mapping, where you're basically going to these different zones, you're beating a boss there, and you're unlocking a point on your atlas, which is like your map upgrade system. So it gives you like bonuses to map drops, or the other thing, bonuses to endgame mechanics. So there's a mechanic called Blight, for example, which is a tower defense mechanic. You're basically trying to protect this core in the center. You're placing towers down and beating enemies that come towards the tower. Or there are things like Delirium, where there's just millions of enemies that spawn and you want to kill them all, and you get bonuses as you kill more of them. Or you can just not do mapping and then do Delve, which is a whole separate system, which is like a roguelite system where you're going down like a mine shaft, and it's not even related to maps. So completing Delve has nothing to do with maps. Or there's Sanctum, where it's another roguelite system, but rather than going down a mine, you're going through like a zone where you don't have health, you use honor, and this honor system is different, and there's like one honor like runs where if you get hit once, you just die, which means melee is unplayable because PoE 1 melee is bad, and the developers know it's bad. That's why they're changing in PoE 2. The problem with PoE 1 right now is the game. When did PoE 1 come out? PoE 1 release date 2013. How many leagues has PoE 1 had? Okay, so oh wait, so no, this is 2 league. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Wait, or is it? Wait, hold up. I wasn't playing back then. Is that 2 separate leagues? Oh, okay, no, that is 2 separate leagues. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. Now, 44 leagues, not all league mechanics come back. So things like Delve, for example, did come back. Bestiary came back, Harbinger, but random other ones like Metamorph, for example, I don't believe anything from Metamorph came back. I was not playing during Metamorph. No, okay, no. Wait. No, okay. No, Catalyst came from Metamorph. Okay, so even if, like, the mechanic's not there... Okay, bad example. Prophecy. Did anything come back from Prophecy? Maybe a unique... Bad example again. Base item did. Okay, I'm sure there is something in here, but regardless, like, the mechanic might not have come back for some of these leagues, even if there were items introduced in that league that did come back in some other form. With a game that's had 44 leagues over 11 years, and they're not leagues like Diablo 3 leagues or Diablo 4 leagues, where it's like, let's change some numbers, and let's, like, add a new boss. Like, these are giant leagues with massive amounts of changes. You start having a game that feels very, very, very bloated. A game where there is a lot of systems. You can go through an entire league and never interact with some of the systems. As an example, like, okay, let me just see what's here. So you can go through an entire league and never interact with Harbinger, because if you don't use any of the Harbinger items or add any Harbinger buffs, you will just not see it. Or you could just completely ignore Delve because this is outside of mapping. Or you can completely ignore Sanctum because this is outside of mapping. Or you can never do Expedition or Ultimatum or Heist. Alright, this is another one that's outside of mapping. Or never do Harvest or Blight. So PoE 1 just has so much stuff. Obviously, when people see PoE 1, they think of PoE 1... okay, it didn't show up. PoE1 skill tree. Obviously, they think of this behemoth, which is coming back in PoE2. It's just laid out differently. In PoE2, there is going to be 1,500 nodes. Yes. Yes, 1,500 nodes. So, I don't know how many nodes are in PoE1. PoE1... Oh, there's 1,325 on PoE1. So there's going to be more in PoE2. Most of it you can ignore though, and just play a build guide. Just read what somebody online tells you to play on max roll, and you'll be good to go. So people see that and they are scared away. Like before they even get to endgame, just trying to level up, people get scared away. But then you get to endgame, and you're like, oh, there's like 12 different systems I can interact with, and I don't know what one's good, like what's going to make me the most money. Should I do Expedition? Should I do Harvest? Should I do Blight? Is one better early endgame than late endgame? Is one harder than another? What's actually fun? Because I haven't played these mechanics, so I don't actually know which one I'll enjoy. The game needed a reset, and this is the problem that a lot of games have when they've been around for a long time. Like FF14 has the problem, WoW has the problem, RuneScape has always had the problem because it's always had 30 fucking skills. How many skills are in RuneScape? RuneScape, number of skills. 29. Yeah, and that's now. I don't know how many there were when I was playing back in 2007. I don't remember what has been added since then. It was around about that number though. PoE2 is kind of needed to reset it and give people the ability to like approach the game and try it out. Now, I don't know how many of the endgame mechanics are going to be back in PoE2, because in the early access, it's not going to be everything. As an example, so in the early access, there's going to be 6 classes. PoE2 early access classes. I don't remember all of the classes that are going to be available. So there's going to be the Warrior, which is your guy with a big bonk. The Sorceress, which is your woman with big lightning. Ranger, which is self-explanatory. Monk, which is dude with a bonk stick. Mercenary, which is guy with a crossbow, also known as a gun. And Witch, which is effectively the Necromancer. It is your minion class. We already know there's going to be 2 more they've showed off already. There's going to be a Druid and, fuck, what was the other one? PoE2 classes added after early access. I believe it's a Druid and... to Druid and something else. I don't remember what it's going to be. But each of those classes also have 2 ascendancies, which is basically like your class specialization, right? So if you want to play Witch, you can go into the Infernalist. Or if you want to play Ranger, Deadeye? Is Deadeye back? Yes, Deadeye is back. So you can go Ranger into Deadeye, or Monk into Invoker, or Mercenary into Gemling Legionnaire, which I don't remember what it was because I wasn't paying attention during that part of the stream. Or you can be a Witch Hunter, which is cool. So you have all of this. So right now there's going to be 6 classes with 2 ascendancies each. In the full game, there's going to be 12 classes with 3 ascendancies each. So... right now, there's only a third of the classes available. Well, a third of the class combinations available. And because nothing is, gear locked to a class, so you can wear any gear on any class, use any weapon on any class, you can, use any skill gems on any class. There's just things that are more specialized to that class, and the way the skill tree is laid out is different parts of the skill tree are focused on different stats. So let's just imagine, for example, that this third here might be the strength third, and this third here might be the magic third, and this third here might be the dexterity third. Sorry, intellect, not magic. Strength, intellect, and dexterity. But if you wanted to go and focus on some other stat, like if you had the stats to use like minions as a warrior, you could do that. And that's what makes Path of Exile like really, really big. If you want to just go do something stupid, you can try it. And you might find something that is just like really, really big. Or it might be bad. It's probably going to be bad though, because people have thought about stuff for thousands of hours, and yeah, you're probably not going to make something crazy. But you might, and that'll be cool. But PoE 2 is also... Hey, this is another problem with PoE 1. PoE 1's endgame is... If you want to play endgame like efficiently, most of the builds are like 1 button or 2 button, or in some cases 3 button builds. So you're only using like 2 or 3 buttons to do all your damage, and the rest of them might be auto cast abilities, or might be like situational debuffs, things like that. Or in the case of minions, like you're resummoning minions, things like that, but your main damage is something else. One of the downsides that's usually listed on a build guide is it needing more than 1 button. Like a 1 button build is the preferred method. But PoE 2 is being slowed down quite a bit, and it seems like it's focusing a lot more on like combo focused gameplay. So you might one example is there's an ability that spawns a bell, and if you bonk the bell, it like causes an AoE around the bell. So you might use that bell ability with the mercenary and use like a multi-shot gun, for example, multi-shot crossbow, and like spam out AoE abilities like that. Or you might have I don't know. Let's imagine something that I don't even know is in the game. Let's say you could shock some enemies with like a debuff, and then you hit them with a ball lightning, and that causes double damage to them or something like that. So PoE 2 is a lot more about like looking how abilities might interact with each other and specializing in a specific kind of combo rather than a specific ability. And this is aided by the fact that when you get an ability from your ascension, from your specialization, so when you put points in your specialization, you'll gain like in PoE 1, there's one where you can summon this like big golem that follows you around. In PoE 1, that's just an ability by itself. In PoE 2, and PoE 1 as well has this system, just not for these abilities. PoE has this system where you can take a skill and then link gems to that skill. So these are support gems. So you have your actual like a skill ability and then support gems for that ability. So you might have a ability that fires an arrow, and then you have a rapid fire support gem, or a multi-shot, or a fire, like it ignites enemies when it hits them, or it's does a chain lightning when it hits them, things like that. But you don't just add one of these gems. I'm not sure how many gems you can link in PoE 2. In PoE 1, you can have your 1 skill gem and then 5 gems linked to that. I don't know if you're still going to be able to do 6 links in PoE 2. I don't remember from the interface. I think you can, though. I don't see why they get rid of the ability to do 6 links. Oh, that's the other thing. In PoE 1, your skills are attached to your gear. So skills also have colors for the gems. So you have these sockets on your gear. They are colored, and then you have to take your skills and socket them into your gear. So your chest piece, for example, the max amount of slots that can have is 6. Now, this means that if you have usually your like main skill is going to be on your armor piece, because you usually want your main skill to be your 6 link. this means that you need not only a 6-linked piece of gear, but a piece of gear that has the stats you want, and also the sockets are the right color. When you start getting up to 6 links, gear like this can start getting really tedious to craft, because getting 6 links on a gear takes a long time. It might take you like 1,000 items to do your socketing, and then getting the 6 sockets is one thing, getting the 6 links is another thing, and then making sure you have a piece of gear that has the stats anyway. Especially when you start getting to later endgame, like, you're spending a lot on this gear. Now the skill gems are moved from your gear to your character. So if you want to go from like a big chest plate, for example, to maybe like some cloth for a caster build, you can change that, and your gear or your skills will be unaffected, which makes it so much easier to replace gear into the end game, because then the main thing you're worrying about is the stats on the gear, rather than, is this even going to work for my build in the first place, which I'm sure is going to create some interesting market economy changes, because now there's going to be a lot of gear that previously was very, very build specific, like, you want a gear with this specific set of sockets, this specific color of sockets. And now that gear is going to be a lot more applicable to other builds, because the socket issue is not there. They do still have sockets on the gear in PoE 2, but now the sockets, rather than being for your skills, are for passive buffs. So you might get a, I think they're called charms. Maybe charms are another system. But you can socket in these things that will give you, like, plus 20 strength and ice resist or something. Like, the stats on them are randomized, so it might be something weird, or like a 15% attack speed with dual-wielding daggers, things like that. Which, because... So you can, like, take those out. So having the number of sockets is still going to matter. So you might still want... I think you can still get, like, 5 socketed gear. I think that has to be, like, that has to be throughout one of the crafting systems. Specifically corruption. But I think normally it would be 4 sockets. I don't remember. Regardless, it's going to make gearing a lot easier, and honestly, it's going to be a lot more fun for me to play, because they got to a point with PoE where like, I just didn't find it fun to get my next gear progression, because I knew on the market board there was only like one piece of gear that was gonna fit what I wanted, and I needed that piece of gear. But maybe, like, I want some other stats on it, but I can't get those stats on it, and because I'm not, like... The PoE crafting system is super complex as well, and I didn't want to go through the crafting system, so... Having this system be... having the lockout be in a different location, I think, is going to make, firstly, crafting a lot more approachable for people who want to try crafting, but also buying gear is going to be so much easier as well. I actually got completely sidetracked by, like, the main point I was talking about there. The main point I wanted to get to was regarding, like, endgame mechanics. So, PoE 1 just has a lot of them, and PoE 2 is going to have this problem eventually as well, but at least in early access, I think there's... I want to say there's, like, 5 or so, because people still want a lot of them, and they can't go back to 1, right? Like, they can't just have maps, delete everything, and be like, hey guys, here's the new game. It's like the game was 10 years ago. All of the improvements are gone now. So obviously that can't be done. So there's Expedition, where basically what you do is you come up to these, like, dig sites, and you place down a bunch of bombs that are linked together, and you blow up the bombs. Enemies come out of the ground, you kill the enemies, you get these special tokens, and then there are some NPCs related to Expedition where you can either buy specific gear from that thing. There's, like, a gear trader where you can buy a base piece of gear and then basically bargain for different abilities you might want. You're like, oh, I want that ability. Oh no, I don't want that one. I want that one. And you're like trying to craft it as you go. And you might get something really good or you might get something really bad. There's like an NPC you barter for like currency items and things like that. That's one of the ones that are included. PoE 2 endgame mechanics. Ritual is back, which is not something I don't do a ton of ritual. It's like it's not like a bad system, but like it can be very hit and miss. So the idea with ritual, I think it works the same way in PoE 2. You go to these like totems in the ground, you activate the totem, you kill the enemies that spawn around the totem, you get ritual points, and there's like a ritual vendor there that you can buy items from. You might get good items, you might get bad ones. It is what it is. Delirium. So delirium is you walk through this mirror, you walk into the delirium world, and hundreds of enemies spawn, you kill the enemies, and you get items. And breach, which is you touch the hand on the ground, hundreds of enemies spawn, you kill the enemies, things drop, you get these like shards, and then you can eventually go to like the breach bosses. Each of these do have like bosses attached to them as well. There's progression systems for them, and having 4 of these, I guess there's technically 5 because there's also labyrinths. Labyrinths are the system you use to gain your points to go into your ascension, into your class specialization. But also, once you have all of your specialization points, you can keep running labyrinths. That's the word. But like harder versions than you would have used to get your ascension points. And obviously harder versions have bigger rewards. Now, there were systems in PoE 1 called Ultimatum and Sanctum. Ultimatum, basically, you get the choice of taking the item that is being offered or going to the next round and taking a debuff. So it might be like traps spawn, or you take additional you take fire damage every time an enemy hits you, or exploding skulls follow you around, things like that. It's going to be tweaked a little bit because in Ultimatum, it was these very short encounters. In the Labyrinth system, it's going to be for these entire rooms. So it needs to be tweaked a bit so you don't just instantly explode. And then Sanctum, I mentioned before, you have this honor system. I fucking hate it because I hate Sanctum. Nobody likes Sanctum. There are Sanctum players that really love it, and apparently if you're really good at Sanctum, it's really good money as well, which is good for the Sanctum players because no one else plays Sanctum because it sucks. But that's also going to be tweaked as well to fit into the Labyrinth system. And then you can get Labyrinth points as well. This is the other thing. So the endgame mechanics, I mentioned they have progression systems. When you beat the bosses now, you're going to be able to add points into the endgame mechanic and further boost the endgame mechanic, make it harder, get better rewards, and potentially get better gear and better money and get further in the game. And then mapping now. So mapping before was very clear what was happening. You would go to your map device, you'd put the map in, you'd add your map modifiers to it. So these were scarabs. These might add certain endgame mechanics, things like that. You use your map device to get into boss rooms as well. In PoE 2, rather than having the explicit map device like you had before, we're not entirely sure about the system because they didn't really show how you interact with it from your hideout, which is your like your housing, your base, whatever you want to call it. Now the mapping system is a roguelite system. So rather than you deciding exactly what map you want to go to, now there is this randomly generated, infinitely spawning world, which I'm sure people during early access are going to find ways to break. People have already suggested, what happens if you break every path around you and only have one point to go to? Is the map going to, or is mapping itself going to be bricked, or is there going to be something you can do? So in PoE 2, you have this roguelite system. You go from point to point to point to point, doing the area there. Every so often there'll be a map boss. Previously in PoE 1, there was a map boss for every single map. Now you only get one chance on every zone, so there isn't a map boss every time. There's just a map boss whenever you feel like adding them. So this is more like a delve system, where delve was randomly generated. You go from point to point to point to point. You have, I guess in delve you didn't have one try. You just could go back to the start and try it again, but it's basically the same idea. So there's a lot of stuff changing with PoE 2. You're going to have a dodge roll now. It's going to be much slower. There's going to be less enemies. It's going to be more, if you want to use the terminology, it's going to be more Souls-like. I don't like the term though. But it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Remember how I said I was going to talk about some random topic for like 30 minutes and get like completely sidetracked by something that didn't matter? I think that happened for Path of Exile. I think that might have happened for Path of Exile. Yeah. Since we're on the topic of video games anyway, let's talk about my fucking meme country. So there is an anime called Hunter x Hunter. It is very good. I highly recommend everybody goes and watches it. It is my favorite anime. It is great. It also has a manga as well that has questionable art at many points because the mangaka does not know when to stop it, even though he is very, very sick and is unable to continue working on it effectively. So there is a new game called Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact. It is a fighting game. I'm not a fan of fighting games, but I did notice this headline. A new fighting game has been banned in Australia, and we only have guesses as to why. Australia has built a reputation as having one of the strictest video game rating systems on the planet. For the record, we do have an 18+ rating system. It just doesn't mean anything. Call of Duty here is not 18+. But a video game with anime characters that is, I would argue, like, most of it just PG, that's too far. And it appears as though another highly anticipated game won't reach the country's shore when it's released next year. Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact, the fighting game based on the popular anime, has been refused classification by the Australian Classification Board, the ACB, officially preventing the game from being sold in the country. The group listed no reason for the decision, but with the ACB having a set of precedent with other games with similar ratings, and the reasoning behind them, it could be a few possibilities. The main suspected reason is how drug use has a gameplay benefit, like granting speed or strength, or portraying drug use in a positive light. For example, if a character even gets health restored from narcotics, the game would likely be refused classification. If you didn't know, this is one of the reasons why in the Fallout series, you are taking what are the drugs called? There was a story about this. Yeah, here we go. Here. So this was a story. This was a story back in 2008. When Fallout 3 was coming out, you were gonna just, like, straight up take morphine, but they decided to rename things because in Australia, if you even suggest that taking morphine or taking cocaine or anything like that might have a positive use to it, your game gets bad. Your game gets banned, even though it's a fucking video game. So that's the reason why you have things like Jet and other like fake names for the drugs in the game. Medex as well is what morphine is. So if you ever use something that is possibly like real drugs, even in that case, Hunter x Hunter does not have real drugs in it. So I don't even know if that would be the reason. Other potential reasons include on-screen depictions of sexual violence and sexualized depictions of characters that appear under 18, which Hunter x Hunter also does not have, even remotely. So I don't know what possibly could be their reason in this case. Hunter x Hunter, Nen Impact gameplay. As a example, here is some gameplay from EVO 2024. Watch this very clearly super sexualized game that only adults should play. Why is this banned? I wish I could tell you. I genuinely wish I could tell you. Maybe there is one ability for one character where they're like, oh my god, that's no, can't have that. My country is a meme. My country is an absolute fucking meme country. I don't understand why it's like this. I do not understand even remotely. On that note, actually, speaking of, well, it is kind of related to what I was saying anyway. It's like it's a side tangent, but it's still kind of related. So in Australia, we did have a recent vote on the legalization of cannabis. This was raised by the Greens Party, who I'm not a big fan of for a lot of things. However, in this case, I am certainly a fan. So they raised a cannabis bill for the legalization of cannabis. It got 13 in favor, 24 against. This is the country that I currently live in, even though, like, pretty much everywhere else in the Western world, cannabis use is very popular. It is generally supported. Obviously, there are people like, you know, don't let people do it when they drive, or don't smoke in public. Sure, whatever. Any of that stuff's, like, sure, fine, whatever. I think most people agree with that. But there is somehow still so much leadership in this country that is just dumb. Like, this is how we get in a situation where clearly a game that has no issues that, like, frankly, I don't know how this game has anything worse than, like, a PG rating, let alone refused classification. For the record, refused classification is supposed to be used for, like, extreme sexual material. Like, it's supposed to be used for, like, you know, games that have rape in them, or for a game where it's just brutal murder on screen the entire time, or, like, there is so much worse that does get rated that in some cases get like an M or an MA rating, which is a 15+ rating, but somehow a game that's not like, there's no blood in the game. Somehow this game is the thing the Australians rating board wants to be like, no, we can't have that. That's a problem. This country is so fucking stupid. Like, it really fucking is. I don't think there's a perfect country out there. Don't get me wrong. Like, every country has its problems, but a lot of the problems with Australia directly affect me, and that's the most important thing. when they become a problem for me, that's when I start caring. Speaking of that, so Valve first came up with the Steam hardware survey more than 20 years ago because it wanted to know what specs it should target for Half-Life 2. I was not aware that it had been around for that long. The first Steam hardware survey came in April 2003 but there were private antecedents used by Valve earlier. The Steam hardware survey has become a critical resource for the game industry, allowing curious enthusiasts or practical-minded developers to get a sense of how the average PC gamer enjoys the hobby. To hear Valve senior engineer Jay Stelly tell it in Half-Life 2's new 20th anniversary developer commentary, the Steam hardware survey first came about because Valve had no other way of accessing the information. Honestly, I do think this is a great resource. The problem is you have a lot of developers who, frankly, are just, not particularly using the information well. Notably games like Monster Hunter Wilds, where they recommend a 4060. Now, they could certainly get away with recommending something worse, like a 4070, right? But their recommended GPU is a 4060. And whilst this is the most popular group, the third most popular group at 4%, it is still only 4%, and there's a lot of people with much, much worse than a 4060. And we've already talked about how cooked the performances in Monster Hunter Wilds. That is only one game that we have that issue with. Dragon's Dogma 2 had issues, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of other issues. Black Myth Wukong has a lot of performance issues as well. I don't even know what the performance specs are like for it. I actually have never bothered to check. All I know is playing it does have some not the best performance. Okay, so the specs it recommends aren't even that high. Oh, were tested with DLSS, FSR. Of course, as always, can we stop doing this? Honestly, I kind of wish that we, if a game developer did this, there's just a note, right here. Game performance is not real. It was tested using DLSS or FSR. Because I'm sick of seeing games where they supposedly have, reasonable specs attached to them, and then you actually look at, what the specs are, and it's with fucking FSR or DLSS. So it's actually, way, way lower if you don't want to run that. But I do need to upgrade my PC eventually anyway. I'm probably going to be doing so sometime relatively soon. I'm kind of hopefully waiting, seeing if there are going to be sales for some hardware. What I'm thinking of getting, I really doubt it's going to go on sale, but I'm probably going to get a 9800 X3D. Actually just go fucking balls out with it, get a really nice CPU. That's what I'm considering doing. Obviously that's going to mean a full-on upgrade. Not everything in my system, but it's gonna mean a motherboard upgrade. It's gonna mean a RAM upgrade. Yeah, I'm gonna have to buy a new CPU cooler because I believe the socket, the mounting layouts have changed as well. So that's the only reason I haven't done it. Every time I look at PC hardware, I'm like, oh my god. I upgraded 5 years ago, right? It's not like I upgrade every year. Yeah, I bought, was it 5 years ago? Maybe it was only 4 years ago. It was just before COVID. That was when I bought my 3600X. That was also when I killed another CPU because I'm a moron and I bent one of the pins. A lot more expensive of a CPU. It was a 3900X. Don't do that. Bad idea. But yeah, eventually I had to upgrade this system. It's just, even if it is something spread out over 4 or 5 years, it's always just a lot of money. And I'm I don't want to spend it. But also, it's getting to the point where, I want to work with, I want to work with 4K video. I want to play games with higher settings. I want to be able to render things quicker. It's just getting to a point where it actually is becoming... It's becoming not needed, but like more and more tempting. And I'm probably gonna upgrade at the end of this month. That's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna wait for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If there are no sales, I'm gonna upgrade anyway because, yeah, I PoE 2 is coming out. Monster Hunter Wilds is cooked, but I still want to play it. Hopefully it's less cooked when the full game comes out. My understanding is the game is quite CPU bound rather than GPU bound. So yeah, because there's a lot more like NPC stuff. There's a lot more AI for the monsters. There's a lot more monsters on screen that need to be calculated for their AI. So, or not even just on screen, just generally in the world, running about doing things. So yeah, it's just something I've had to do, or not. Again, not had to do, just meaning to do for a while and putting off. And then I'm gonna use that hardware probably to build another system. I don't know if it's gonna be a capture machine or it's gonna be a fuck around machine. It's gonna be something, or it's gonna sit there on my shelf for like 5 years and I'm never gonna do anything, because I do have a GPU up here as well. Like my old GPU, like I still have the old GPU that used to be in this system, right? It's just not doing anything right now. So probably gonna have a new system by the end of the year, or mostly new. Like my drives are fine, my case fans are fine. I upgraded my GPU earlier this year, last year, I don't know, one of the two. So none of that's gonna change, but motherboard, CPU, RAM, cooler, yeah. I need to do like a proper look at like what motherboard and RAM I'm gonna buy anyway, because I know the CPU I'm gonna buy, but not sure about the others. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with 32 gigs of RAM or go up to 64. 32, like, I don't really need 64. I'm not even getting anywhere near close to using 32 anyway. So like well, unless it's cosmic and it has a memory leak, but that's a special exception. Under normal conditions, I'm not getting anywhere to the point of using 32 gigs of RAM, so it's probably not worth going and making the full upgrade. How much? You know what? Let's actually find out. How much is RAM right now? I know I said I'm going to upgrade soon, but I haven't even done like proper research for anything. Memory, DDR5. Can we search by, I thought I could search by capacity. Ah, here we go. 232, 416s. Yeah, that works. And sort by low to high. So 64 gigs of RAM, $260. Now, wait, is 5200 megahertz like a normal low-end RAM now? 5200 is like low. What the fuck? Man, I've really not... Wait, so top end you're seeing on 64... I'm guessing this is getting like server stuff, maybe? 6600. 6600 megahertz. I remember when like 3200 was high. What the fuck? All right. Let's check 32 gigs. So is that even, why is that, why is, okay, for anyone just listening, the menu is going behind. Okay, so like, okay, whatever. So there's no wait, so 32 gigs, You can get 32 gigs of 6400 megahertz for $160. What the fuck? This is why I love PC hardware, and like I'm not someone who follows PC hardware nowadays, like release to release to release. It's kind of like how I handle my phone, right? So every time I look at new phones, it's like every 4 or so years. So I look at what's available in the market, and I'm always just like, what the fuck has happened? How is everything so different? Why the fuck is 6400 megahertz 160 Australian dollars? So if you want to go the... Okay, let's just... Okay, if we just get rid of all of that and just say anything. So 140 for 5200 megahertz. What the fuck? What? I'm having like an existential crisis. Is that it? I'm having a mental breakdown. I'm having a fucking quarter life crisis. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, let's have a look at drive prices, actually. Like, memory prices I haven't looked at in a long time. Surely drive prices aren't that crazy. Remember when 1 terabyte drives, like 1 terabyte mechanical hard drives were like $1,000? $100 for a Samsung Evo 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. Let's go, what, 8 terabytes. Okay, 8 terabytes is, you can get a, okay, this is quad level storage, which I believe like runs out like pretty quickly. $900 for 8 terabytes. Far out. Fucking hell. Oh, sorry. $89 for a cheaper one. $55 for 500 gigabytes. Man. Okay, let's just sort by price lowest. So the lowest price thing we have here is $45 for a 2.5-inch SSD, 500 gigabytes. Jesus. Like, while GPU prices might be crazy, and like they're never gonna come down, at least storage prices are just ridiculously cheap, right? Like, this would be what, $25 for 500 gigabytes. Like, just think about that in the context of where things were like 10 years ago. $25 for 500 gigabytes. Holy shit. Holy shit. I've thought about this before, but maybe I am just like fucking out of touch and I stop paying it. Like, even in the tech space, I'm just not paying attention to what's happening. I just get impressed by what's happening every couple of years. This is how I feel right now. If anyone else hasn't checked hardware prices in a while, and like you know, you maybe ordered like a PC like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago and haven't seen memory prices or drive prices in a while, let me know how you feel about that as well. I do want to know. Man. Well, computers are crazy. Yeah, computers are wild, man. I don't even know what to say. I really don't. I really just don't know what to say. I guess we should move on to one last thing before we decide to end off the episode. So, actually, let's talk a bit about social media. So, Blue Sky has been gaining quite a bit of popularity. Quite a bit. I don't remember how many users they have right now. Blue Sky user count. There's a stat website. No, not Statista. There's like a actual Blue Sky stat website. Is this linked to the site? Yes, here it is. Is it gonna load? Okay. Blue Sky post count and author stats. So it seems like from the peak, it may have slowed down a bit. Yeah, this is what always tends to happen, right? Like, you have a giant peak and then people go back to what they were on before. Now, we don't really know if it's gonna... Like, we don't know if it's gonna have, like, the threads kind of approach where, you know, a lot of people joined because you got instantly joined over if you had a Instagram account, and then it's like, whoom, down into the ground. At least so far, Blue Sky is looking fairly healthy. It's very possible people just go back to Twitter, and I do expect a lot of these people to go back to Twitter. But we'll have to, like, properly wait and see. Like, daily followers, this one popped off because a lot of people were joining, and then a lot of people were finding accounts they were, like, they like on Twitter. But as less people are joining, then less people are going to be following people, so that's gonna, like, jump down. I believe... I don't remember what this one was a month ago. Was that... What happened a month ago? Was that the announcement of... Was that the announcement of the AI stuff? Or was that the block button? Because I know this, like, the current peak we have is because of, like, all of that stuff happening. It's just, like, shot up. But I don't remember, like, what the peak was, like, a month back. But what I've been seeing a lot of is... Not on Twitter, because Twitter, like, knows what it does. Like, Twitter people, they don't need to argue with people to prove that Twitter is a popular website. Yes, people are going to argue it being popular, and I do think it has a lot of technical issues that a lot of people are not addressing. A lot of the time, the site just kind of dies for, like, no reason. DMs are broken half the time. Notifications don't really work. But Twitter has a lot of users. So, Blue Sky people usually like, don't come... Twitter people are like, well, don't come back. You're going to be back anyway because it's Twitter. But from the Mastodon side, I've been seeing, or like Fediverse in general, I've been seeing a lot of hostility to Blue Sky, and not just because of the technical differences of the platforms, because obviously Fediverse people argue Blue Sky is not decentralized, and in many ways it's not. They still have their centralized search system, and most people are accessing the website through Blue Sky. And most people are not hosting any sort of nodes either, so it is mostly centralized with a decentralized architecture behind it that hopefully gets expanded upon further as we go. But I've been seeing, like, a lot of just general hostility towards people that want to use Blue Sky, and why someone would want to use Blue Sky over something like the Fediverse. And I genuinely just don't think any of this is healthy, right? Like, being angry at people for not using your platform is not going to get more people to use your platform. Like, if they feel like Mastodon, the Fediverse, is toxic, why would people want to go to it? Now, some people might argue, well, Twitter's toxic, and sure, but it's toxic in different ways. On Twitter, you have toxicity from everybody. Doesn't matter what your political leaning is, doesn't matter what your interest is, everybody on there is toxic, but you have your little communities on there as well, right? Like, yes, communities might be toxic to other communities, but you have that community there that, you know, likes the stuff you're doing. But on on the Fediverse, there is this toxicity to anyone who wants to use something else, who might argue the benefits of having any sort of centralization, of, you know, Mastodon being a confusing thing to join. We have to join these different instances, and you don't just go to mastodon.com and log into something. You have to go to like mastodon.online or mastodon.art if you hate yourself, or like any of these other things, or like it's very different to the way that most people are used to interacting with a social media site. Whereas Blue Sky, because there is that centralization, you go to the Blue Sky website, you log into Blue Sky, and then you're good. And it's not even just people in like the non-technical world that like Blue Sky. Like, I'm a big fan of Blue Sky. I honestly do think it is a fairly good platform. I do think that having that some level of centralization there, at least for now, seems to be the better way to the better way to deal with the search issues, to deal with getting content out to people. And I don't know, I just generally like the experience a lot more. There's also a lot of people that are trying to, like, I guess, be really weird about Blue Sky as well. It's like, well, Blue Sky, it got a lot of funding from crypto bros, and it got a lot of funding from like big companies, and yeah, but like, can we talk about the actual merits of the site? I don't really care where the money came from. Because if the money came from, I don't know, some Saudi Arabian oil prince, but it has nothing to do with things they stand for, or if it comes from, I don't know, I pick some billionaire, like, doesn't matter. If it's not Jeff Bezos, but it has nothing to do with things Jeff Bezos cares about, like, it doesn't matter the money originally came from that person. I think what's more important is looking at what it's currently doing. If there is a contract in place where maybe it does have to do something at some point down the line, fair enough. Like, that's a reasonable complaint to make. But if the idea is, here, have some money, make a cool platform, I don't think you can really hold that against someone. Just the same as if, like, some billionaire wanted to donate to work on the GIMP project or GNOME or something. I wouldn't hold it against GNOME that they took, like, I don't know, Elon Musk's money or Bill Gates' money or someone like that. Like, that has nothing to do with it. If it's a no strings attached donation, or if the idea is it's an investment to grow the platform, but it's not growing it in a way that I think is negative, I just can't really hold that against the platform. And it feels like a lot of people in the Fediverse are just kind of grasping at straws, trying to find any reason why Blue Sky is bad, rather than focusing on the actual important point, which is, why do people not want to use the Fediverse? What is it about the Fediverse that is bad, that is like detracting from the experience, that is convincing people to go to these other things? What is it that people like about Twitter? What is it that people like about Blue Sky? What is it that the 12 people on Threads like about Threads? And I do think a lot of that is the ease of access, just knowing that you can go to a thing and you just log into it. I do think what would really help Mastodon is if there was, or just the Fediverse in general, if there was a Mastodon login page, right? Where you say, I am on, similar to how Matrix works, where you go to the Matrix website, you can specify your home server. If you could go to some Mastodon website, or Pleroma website, or Misskey website, or anything like that, we'll just go with Mastodon. You go to a Mastodon website, and you say, my name, or my domain is this, where my account is this is my username, you log in, and it just basically redirects you over to the actual instance you're on. So if you have an account on Fostodon, for example, you log on to mastodon.com and it then redirects you over to Fostodon. That, I think, obviously would be expensive to run that architecture, but I do think would, just that by itself would make some of the onboarding process a lot easier and re-accessing the site a lot easier. Because if you're someone who doesn't really care about the Fediverse, you make an account on mstdn.online and then you try to log on to mastodon.online not knowing those are different things. You're like, okay, why does my account not exist? You make a new account. You're like, this is not my account though. Like, what happened to my account? And you just get confused and leave. And issues like that are just not really being discussed and not really being addressed at all in the world of the Fediverse. And it's sad, because I like the Fediverse as a piece of tech. I do think it's got a lot of issues with the people that have stuck around, because a lot of the people who... Most of the people that have stuck in the Fediverse are people who are die-hard Fediverse people, which is why we have this problem of toxicity to anyone who is not a die-hard Fediverse user. So you have this issue where nobody wants to rejoin that because there's no like, Twitter's not bad enough, Blue Sky's doing pretty good, Threads no one's on anyway. So Mastodon kind of lost its chance, and the Fediverse kind of lost its chance, and now that Blue Sky is out of its, like, private early access, I really don't think there's ever going to be a point for the Fediverse to rise again unless we see Blue Sky going down a really bad route. And honestly, I expect a lot of the Fediverse people who are, like, die-hard Fediverse people to eventually make accounts on other platforms as well, just for the sole purpose of there being a lot of other people on those platforms, and it just makes sense to be there. Maybe they won't be the first ones, but a lot of other people they care about are going to be on those platforms as well, and if they start using the Fediverse less, then, I don't know, you might have more of a migration over to that. But there is a lot of, like, bridging software, because unlike Twitter, which is very much against people using their API, Blue Sky, at least for now, has a lot more freedom in that regard. So there is bridging stuff, and Mastodon, because it's all open source, there is bridging stuff for that as well. So there's, like, I think it's called, like, FediBridge. I think FediBridge is the, it's like, well, there's a couple of bridging tools you can use. So I don't know. I do think the world of social media is interesting. Twitter's not going anywhere. I did think it was going to have a lot more technical challenges that it has had. It still has a lot that is really annoying, but it's not collapsed on its face like I thought it would. So I'm genuinely impressed. But it's still kind of buggy, pretty buggy, and dies a lot. Anyway. We have hit the 2-hour mark now. We're just over the 2-hour mark, actually. So I think we're going to end it off there. Ugh. That was an episode. I don't know what we talked about, but I think that was probably kind of fun. So, if you like the episode, that's cool. That's really cool. We might be doing some more solo ones as well, unless I decide to actually send messages to people, or people I sent messages to decide to send messages back to me, which is always the challenge of getting guests on anything. Not any one particular person, just people in general. Me, myself, I am bad at responding to messages, so yeah. Yeah. Anyway. If you're listening to the audio version of this, you can find the video version on YouTube at Tech Over Tea. If you want to find the audio version, that is on any podcast platform, search Tech Over Tea and you will find it. There is an RSS feed. We are on Spotify with video as well, so that's cool. The main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. I don't know what will be out when you're watching this, so go see what is over there. Also, I've got my gaming channel, Brody on Games. I believe we are probably going to be done with Black Myth Wukong by the time you're seeing this. And maybe Kingdom Hearts 3 as well. Not super sure about that one. I'm also not certain about what game I'm going to be playing next. I don't know. I'm thinking... I'm thinking Metaphor, but there are some other games I want to play as well, and yeah. Also the React channel, Brody Robertson Reacts, I upload clips there as well, so if you just want to see clips and just care about me ranting about stuff and not video games, that is also a thing. So, that is going to be it for me. How do I end this? What do I say? I haven't had a sign off myself in a long ass time. Oh, I'm tired. Is that going to be my sign off? You know what? That's fine. Catch you later.